Foundations of Sand. The first time Olivia Mercer met Wesley Harrington, she was kneeling in soil at the Botanical Gardens spring exhibition, sketching the delicate veins of a rare orchid. Her fingers were stained with charcoal, auburn hair escaping its loose bun as she concentrated on capturing the flower's intricate patterns. She didn't notice the tall figure watching her work until his shadow fell across her sketchbook. "That's extraordinary," he said, crouching beside her. "You've captured something the photographers missed entirely." Olivia looked up into eyes the color of Pacific shallows and felt an immediate flutter in her chest. Wesley Harrington had the kind of smile that transformed his entire face, warm, genuine, with a hint of boyish charm that belied his tailored suit and confident demeanor. "The soul of the flower isn't in its perfection," she replied, brushing a smudge from the paper. "It's in the subtle asymmetries." Their conversation flowed effortlessly from art to travel, from childhood dreams to adult ambitions. Wesley explained he was developing eco-friendly luxury resorts in protected landscapes, bringing sustainable tourism to fragile ecosystems. His passion for combining conservation with experience resonated with Olivia's own work, documenting endangered plant species through her illustrations. By sunset, they'd wandered through every exhibition hall, shared coffee at the Garden Cafe, and exchanged phone numbers with the comfortable certainty of people who had known each other far longer than hours. Their courtship unfolded with the vibrant intensity of tropical blooms. Weekend trips to coastal towns where Wesley scouted locations became adventures where Olivia discovered new specimens to illustrate. He brought her wildflowers after business meetings and hung her framed illustrations in his downtown apartment. When he surprised her with a greenhouse addition to her modest studio, filling it with rare plants for her work, Olivia felt truly seen for perhaps the first time in her life. "You understand me in ways no one else has bothered to try," she told him one evening, as they watched fireflies from his balcony. "That's because you're worth the effort," Wesley replied, kissing her temple. "You're extraordinary, Olivia Mercer." 6 months later, during a sunrise hike through a misty redwood forest, Wesley dropped to one knee beside an ancient tree. The ring caught morning light filtering through branches, an emerald surrounded by tiny diamonds like dewdrops on leaves. "You've shown me what it means to appreciate beauty in all its forms," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Marry me, Liv. Let's build something remarkable together." She said yes through happy tears, believing completely in the foundation they had created. The first hairline fracture appeared 3 weeks later at their engagement dinner. Wesley had reserved a private room at Terrine, the city's most exclusive restaurant. Olivia wore a forest green dress that complemented her eyes, feeling beautiful and cherished as Wesley introduced her to colleagues and friends as the visionary behind my best ideas. Then a striking woman in a crisp white pantsuit approached their table, golden hair cascading over her shoulders, red lips curved in a practiced smile. "Wesley, darling, congratulations." She air-kissed both his cheeks before turning to Olivia with appraising eyes. "And you must be the fiancé. I'm Camille Barrett." Wesley's hand tightened almost imperceptibly on Olivia's waist. "Camille and I dated for 2 years," he explained. "She's developing the marketing strategy for our New Zealand project." "Former flame, current colleague, eternal friend," Camille added with a melodious laugh. "Wesley and I are practically family at this point." Throughout dinner, Camille dominated conversation with inside jokes and shared memories, repeatedly referencing our vision when discussing Wesley's projects. More concerning was Wesley's response. He seemed to expand in Camille's presence, laughing louder, gesturing more dramatically, as if performing for her approval. Later that night, as Olivia removed her earrings at Wesley's apartment, she carefully mentioned her observation. "You and Camille seem very connected still." Wesley waved dismissively. "It's just business, Liv. She's brilliant at what she does, and we work well together. Our relationship has been purely professional for years." "How long have you been broken up exactly?" "About 10 months before I met you," he admitted. But it ended amicably. "No drama, no baggage." Olivia nodded, pushing away the small voice, wondering why he'd never mentioned Camille before. Instead, she focused on the emerald ring catching lamplight, the promise it represented. Every relationship had adjustment periods, she reasoned. This was simply theirs. She couldn't have known then that this moment was merely the first grain shifting in what would prove to be a foundation built entirely of sand. Cracks in the canvas wedding planning should have been a joyful collaboration, but for Olivia, it became an exercise in diplomatic patience. Every decision seemed to involve Camille's opinion, from venue selections to menu tastings. Wesley's explanation was always the same. She planned corporate events before marketing. She has contacts and expertise we can use. The wedding coordinator, Penelope, a no-nonsense woman with 20 years of experience, raised an eyebrow during their third meeting when Camille arrived uninvited and immediately began critiquing the flower arrangements Olivia had selected. "Peonies are so overdone." "Wesley," Camille declared, scrolling through her phone to show alternatives. "Remember that installation we saw in Barcelona? That would be perfect for your aesthetic." "Our aesthetic," Olivia corrected quietly. But Wesley was already nodding, his attention captured by Camille's suggestions. Later, when Camille excused herself to take a call, Penelope placed a gentle hand on Olivia's arm. "In my experience," she said carefully, "weddings reveal the relationship dynamics you'll live with for years to come. Pay attention to patterns now." The warning lingered as patterns indeed emerged. Wesley began forgetting details of their conversations, then making decisions with Camille instead. When Olivia selected a small, sustainable local bakery for their wedding cake, she discovered Wesley had already commissioned an elaborate 5-tier creation from a celebrity chef Camille knew. But we agreed on something simple. Olivia reminded him during dinner at his apartment. "Did we? I don't remember that conversation." Wesley frowned, twirling pasta on his fork. "Anyway, Camille got us an incredible deal. This chef usually has a 2-year waiting list." "That's not the point, Wesley. We're supposed to be planning our wedding together. Lately, it feels like you and Camille are planning it, and I'm just an afterthought." Wesley set down his fork with a sigh. "You're being oversensitive. Camille is just helping. She wants this to be perfect for us. For you." "No," Olivia countered, finding unexpected strength in her voice. "She wants it perfect for you. There's a difference." The tension escalated when Wesley suggested incorporating one of Camille's marketing campaigns into their wedding theme, complete with branded hashtags and photo opportunities designed to promote his newest resort property. "Our wedding isn't a business opportunity," Olivia protested during a rare moment alone together. "But that's the beauty of it," Wesley insisted, eyes bright with enthusiasm that never quite reached hers anymore. "We can blend our personal happiness with professional success." "Camille says—" "I don't care what Camille says," Olivia interrupted, surprising them both with her vehemence. "This is our wedding, Wesley. Ours, not hers." That night, lying awake beside Wesley's sleeping form, Olivia traced the outline of her engagement ring and confronted the discomfort she'd been avoiding. The issue wasn't just Camille's presence, it was Wesley's prioritization of Camille's opinions over hers. More disturbing was his inability to recognize the problem, dismissing her concerns as insecurity rather than addressing the legitimate boundaries being crossed. Still, she loved him. And love, she had always believed, meant working through difficulties together. The following weekend, she invited Wesley to her small studio apartment, a space that had become increasingly neglected as she spent most nights at his place. She prepared his favorite meal and created an intimate atmosphere free from wedding discussions, trying to reconnect with the man who had once knelt beside her to admire her drawings. "I've missed this," Wesley admitted as they shared dessert on her tiny balcony, fairy lights twinkling above them. "Just us, no distractions." "Me too," Olivia replied, gathering her courage. "Wesley, I need you to understand something. I'm not opposed to Camille being in your life as a colleague. What hurts is feeling like my voice matters less than hers when it comes to our relationship." Wesley took her hands, his expression contrite. "I never meant to make you feel that way. You're the one I'm marrying, Liv. You're everything to me." For a brief, hopeful moment, Olivia believed they'd turned a corner. Then Wesley's phone chimed with Camille's custom notification. a sound Olivia had come to dread. "Sorry," he said, already reaching for it. "She's finalizing details for our New Zealand presentation. I need to take this," as Wesley stepped inside to take the call, laughing within seconds at something Camille said. Olivia stared at her half-eaten dessert and wondered when exactly she had become the third wheel in her own relationship. The invitation that broke the vase. 2 months before the wedding, Olivia sat at Wesley's desk finalizing details for their honeymoon, a 2-week exploration of New Zealand's most pristine landscapes. Wesley had suggested the destination, knowing her desire to document the country's unique flora for a book she hoped to publish. For the first time in weeks, she felt genuine excitement about their future. Opening his laptop to check their itinerary, she noticed an email thread titled NZ Accommodations updated with Camille's address prominently featured. Professional curiosity quickly transformed into personal dread as she scanned the messages. "I've booked the connecting suite at Eastridge for myself," Camille had written. "The views are incredible, and being next door means we can maximize our working sessions without disrupting the honeymoon aspect for Olivia. She can explore while we handle business." Wesley's reply was equally devastating. "Perfect arrangement as always, Cam. I've scheduled our investor meetings for mornings so afternoons can be couple time. Olivia doesn't need to know about the work component. She'd only worry about intruding on our honeymoon. Better to present it as coincidental overlap for a few days." Olivia read the exchange 3 times, her hands trembling as the implications crystallized. Not only had Wesley invited Camille to join their honeymoon, but he'd deliberately hidden this from her, planning to present it as an accidental encounter rather than the calculated arrangement. It clearly was. The antique vase Wesley had given her for her birthday slipped from suddenly nerveless fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor just as the apartment door opened. "Liv, what happened?" Wesley rushed forward, concern etched on his features until he noticed the open laptop. His expression shifted instantly to defensive annoyance. "You were going through my emails?" "I was checking our honeymoon itinerary," she corrected, voice unnaturally calm despite the storm raging inside. "The itinerary for our honeymoon that apparently includes your ex-girlfriend in the connecting suite." Wesley ran a hand through his hair, the gesture he always used when crafting explanations. "It's not what it looks like. There's a major opportunity with New Zealand investors that couldn't wait. Camille and I will only be working mornings. The rest of the time is just for us." "And you were going to what? Pretend to bump into her at the resort?" "Act surprised that this incredible coincidence had occurred." "I was protecting you from unnecessary stress," Wesley insisted. "The wedding is already demanding so much of your attention, and I didn't want business concerns to overshadow our special time." Olivia laughed, a hollow sound devoid of humor. "That's remarkably considerate, Wesley. Except it wasn't concern for me that motivated your deception. It was knowing I would never agree to this arrangement." "You're overreacting," he countered, his tone taking on the patronizing quality she'd grown to recognize. "This is a career-defining opportunity. Anyone would understand that. Anyone named Camille, perhaps." Olivia stepped over the broken vase, such an apt metaphor for what was happening that she almost appreciated the symbolism. "I need you to understand something clearly. I will not spend my honeymoon as an afterthought while you and your ex-girlfriend conduct business in the next room." "It's not like that. Camille and I are the actual couple in this scenario," Olivia finished for him. "I see that now. The question is why you don't." For 3 hours they argued in cycles, Wesley alternating between defensive justifications, dismissive minimization, and finally, when those failed, emotional appeals about their future together. Throughout it all, Olivia kept returning to one fundamental truth. A man who truly prioritized their relationship would never have created this situation to begin with. "I'll cancel her booking," Wesley finally conceded around midnight, exhaustion evident in his slumped shoulders. "If it means that much to you," his phrasing, "if it means that much to you," revealed everything about his perspective. To Wesley, this was Olivia being difficult rather than him breaching fundamental trust. The realization settled with surprising clarity. This pattern would never change because Wesley didn't recognize it as problematic. "I appreciate that," she said quietly, gathering her coat. "But I need some time to think about what this means for us. I'm going to stay at my place tonight. Liv, don't leave like this. We've resolved it. We've addressed a symptom," she corrected, "not the disease." As she drove home through empty streets, Olivia realized the tightness in her chest had eased for the first time in months. The pain remained, but underneath it lay something unexpected, the profound relief of finally acknowledging a truth she'd been avoiding for too long. Blooming in the aftermath, the morning of what should have been her wedding day, Olivia woke before sunrise. She moved methodically through her small apartment, watering each plant, making tea with precise movements, before sitting at her desk to review her plans one final time. The previous 3 weeks had been the most difficult and yet most clarifying of her adult life. After discovering the honeymoon deception, she'd asked Wesley for space to consider their future. His initial respect for this request lasted exactly 48 hours before the barrage began. Flowers delivered hourly to her workplace, late-night emotional phone calls, and finally, Camille herself appearing at Olivia's door with a practiced speech about misunderstandings and her own relationship with a fabricated boyfriend in Auckland. That particular manipulation had crystallized Olivia's decision. The coordinated effort to make her doubt her own perceptions rather than acknowledge the inappropriate boundaries confirmed everything she needed to know. With quiet determination, Olivia had continued wedding preparations as if nothing had changed, allowing Wesley to believe she had accepted his explanations. Meanwhile, she methodically rearranged her life, withdrawing her shared savings to a separate account, securing a 6-month botanical illustration residency in New Zealand that would begin in 3 days, and carefully preparing the message she would leave behind. Now, on this morning that marked both an ending and beginning, she dressed in the outfit she'd chosen for her honeymoon departure, a practical linen dress in the deep green Wesley had always loved, paired with comfortable walking boots. Her engagement ring sat in a small wooden box beside a handwritten letter, both tucked into a larger package wrapped in handmade paper embedded with wildflower seeds. Olivia arrived at the historic garden venue 2 hours before the ceremony was scheduled to begin. The coordinator, Penelope, was supervising floral installations when she spotted Olivia approaching alone. "I know," Olivia said before Penelope could speak, holding out an envelope. "This explains everything. Could you give this package to Wesley when he arrives, and this letter to be read by the officiant at the ceremony time?" Penelope studied her face, then nodded once. "You seem certain." "I've never been more sure of anything," Olivia confirmed, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. "Do you need help getting away discreetly?" "No," Olivia smiled, a genuine expression that felt foreign after months of tension. "My flight isn't until tonight. I'm going to spend the day at the botanical gardens where we first met." "It seems fitting," Penelope squeezed her hand. "That's the bravest thing I've seen in 20 years of weddings." Olivia spent those peaceful hours sketching among the orchids, periodically checking her phone as messages accumulated, first confused, then frantic, finally angry as the ceremony time approached and her absence was discovered. She silenced notifications when the designated hour arrived, imagining the scene unfolding at the garden venue. The officiant would be opening her letter now, reading her words to the assembled guests, Wesley standing stunned at the altar. "To those gathered today expecting a wedding, I offer my sincere apologies for any inconvenience. To Wesley, I leave this final message. Love should never require the diminishment of oneself to accommodate another. I've realized I deserve someone who chooses me completely, not conditionally, not when convenient, not as an accessory to their ambitions. The honeymoon reservations remain in my name alone, and I intend to use them. Consider this my first act of choosing myself. The ring is returned with no bitterness, only the hope that someday you'll understand the difference between possession and partnership. To Wesley's family, thank you for the warmth you've shown me. To my friends and family, please know this decision brings me peace, not pain. Sometimes the bravest beginning requires walking away from what we thought was certain." As sunset painted the greenhouse in amber light, Olivia completed her sketch of a particularly resilient orchid, one that bloomed magnificently despite growing in challenging conditions. She titled it Adaptation and carefully tucked it into her portfolio. Her phone, when she finally checked it, contained dozens of missed calls from Wesley and, more encouragingly, messages of support from friends who had witnessed the ceremony that wasn't. She sent a single text to her closest friend. "I'm okay. Better than okay. Flying tonight as planned. Will contact when settled." Then, gathering her belongings, Olivia walked out of the gardens toward the waiting taxi, steps light with the unexpected weightlessness of choosing her own path forward. Gardens of New Beginnings, Queenstown greeted Olivia with dramatic mountains reflected in glassy lakes, the air sharper and cleaner than anything she'd known. Her small rented cottage overlooked Lake Wakatipu, its front garden overgrown with native plants. She immediately began, sketching and cataloging, a therapeutic ritual that grounded her in the present moment rather than ruminating on the past. The botanical residency provided structure to her days. Mornings spent with scientists documenting endangered alpine flowers, afternoons in the studio transforming field sketches into detailed illustrations. The work absorbed her completely, demanding technical precision and artistic sensitivity that left little mental space for regrets. 2 weeks into her stay, during an expedition to document rare orchids in a remote valley, Olivia encountered Rohan, a native Maori botanist leading conservation efforts against invasive species. With silver threading his dark hair and laugh lines crinkling around observant eyes, Rohan approached plant life with reverent familiarity that resonated deeply with Olivia's own perspective. "You have a gift," he observed, watching her sketch a particularly elusive bloom. "Most artists capture appearance. You somehow capture essence." "Plants have personalities," Olivia explained, adding subtle shading to indicate resilience in the stem's structure. "I try to honor that." Their professional relationship evolved naturally into friendship as Rohan introduced her to hidden ecological treasures across the region. Unlike Wesley's performative enthusiasm, Rohan's connection to these landscapes ran soul-deep, informed by cultural heritage and scientific knowledge alike. He shared Maori stories about each plant species, weaving traditional knowledge with conservation science in ways that transformed Olivia's understanding of interconnection. On particularly clear evenings, they would sit on Olivia's porch watching stars emerge, speaking sometimes about their work but often about deeper matters, family histories, personal philosophies, the painful growth experiences that had shaped their perspectives. During one such conversation, Olivia finally shared the full story of her canceled wedding and honeymoon escape. "I sometimes wonder if I overreacted," she admitted, watching moonlight ripple across the lake. Walking away from a 4-year relationship over boundary issues sounds dramatic when summarized that way. Rohan was quiet for a long moment before responding. "Our ancestors believe that when you stand at a crossroads, your tupuna, your ancestors, whisper guidance that your conscious mind might question, but your spirit recognizes as truth." "You heard those whispers. What if I just heard my own insecurities?" "The fact that you can question your decision with such honesty suggests it wasn't made from insecurity," Rohan observed. "Insecurity doesn't seek truth, it seeks validation. You were seeking alignment between your inner knowing and outer circumstances." 3 months into her residency, Olivia received an unexpected package forwarded from her home address, a small box containing the greenhouse key Wesley had given her, along with a brief note. "Camille and I are moving forward with the New Zealand development. We've been seeing each other since shortly after the wedding situation. I think perhaps you saw what I wasn't ready to admit. The greenhouse is yours. I had it legally transferred to your name. I hope you find what you're looking for." Strangely, the confirmation of her suspicions brought no fresh pain, only closure. That evening, she wrote a short response wishing them well, then turned her attention to the increasingly complex illustrations evolving under her hands. Her book project had expanded beyond New Zealand flora to include the cultural stories Rohan had shared, creating a work that honored both scientific precision and spiritual significance. As autumn painted the landscape in rich golds and crimsons, Olivia's residency received a prestigious extension offer. Simultaneously, a conservation initiative invited her to document threatened ecosystem interactions through specialized illustrations. The parallel opportunities would mean establishing roots in New Zealand for at least 2 more years. Both options align with your talents, Rohan noted as they discussed her decision over dinner at his family home, where she had become a welcome regular presence. The question is, which calls to your spirit more strongly? That's what I'm still figuring out, Olivia admitted. 6 months ago, all my decisions were filtered through someone else's priorities. Now there's almost too much freedom. The wonderful burden of authentic choice, he smiled, understanding in his eyes. No rush, Olivia. The land has waited thousands of years to be properly seen. It can wait while you listen for your answer. What Olivia was gradually recognizing, though not yet ready to articulate, was how profoundly her definition of love had transformed. The intense, consuming connection she'd experienced with Wesley now seemed like a beautiful but ultimately unstable construction, demanding constant maintenance and performance to sustain its glittering facade. In contrast, her evolving friendship with Rohan offered something she'd never fully experienced, the quiet steadiness of mutual respect that required no diminishment of self, no strategic omissions, no carefully managed impressions. Whether their connection remained friendship or eventually grew into something more, it existed in truth rather than expectation. On the anniversary of what would have been her wedding day, Olivia rose before dawn and hiked to a lookout point above the lake. As first light illuminated distant peaks, she opened her sketchbook to a blank page and began drawing, not the landscape before her, but a self-portrait. It was something she'd never attempted before, always finding greater comfort in capturing the world around her rather than turning that observant eye upon herself. The woman emerging. On the page looked both familiar and transformed, confidence in the set of her shoulders, wisdom in the slight curve of her smile and in her eyes, the clear gaze of someone who had learned to truly see herself. Beneath the completed drawing, Olivia wrote the title that felt like both conclusion and beginning, The Promise I Made to Myself.